Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our first event in our Journey of Healing training series. Today, we launched the series with a baseline introduction to domestic violence training. My name is Aaliyah Smith, and I am the project coordinator with the Research and Public Health Division at NACUI. Joining me from our team is Rachel Dale, and she is the Communications Associate, and we are honored to have you all today. We kindly ask that you place your name, organization, tribal affiliation, and title into the chat box. In addition, we welcome any feedback you would like to provide about your webinar experience in our survey, which will be posted in our chat box. Next slide, please. As shown on the agenda, we will begin the session with an overview and some housekeeping, followed by an introduction to our wonderful presenter, and then we'll have the presentation. We will end the session with a Q&A and adjourn promptly at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Next slide, please. For those of you that are not familiar with NACUI, here is a bit of background. The National Council of Urban Indian Health, also known as NACUI, is a national nonprofit organization devoted to the support and development of quality, accessible, and culturally competent health and public health services for American Indians and Alaska Natives living in urban areas. NACUI is the only national representative of the 41 Title V Urban Indian Organizations, or UIOs, under the Indian Health Service and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act, or IHCIA. NACUI strives to improve the health of over 70% of the AIAN population that lives in urban areas, supported by quality, accessible healthcare centers. As we dive into our session, here are a few things to keep in mind. This session is being recorded. All mics have been muted unless otherwise directed. Questions can be typed in the chat box. Q&A will follow at the end of the session. And please note that the QR code at the bottom of the slide, which will give you access to our feedback survey. I will now introduce our presenter for this session. Brittany Marino is the program director for a statewide tribal organization known as the Intertribal Council of California. The Intertribal Council of California is the largest consortium in the United States and is known for conducting a variety of services in relation to domestic violence in tribal communities. Brittany oversees domestic violence-related matters and community outreach. She works closely with tribal subject matter experts who have been a success in their respective fields of work. She has successfully helped in the deliverables for grant management and assisted in the development of programs such as First Love Yourself, odor abuse training, and Free and Empowered in a collaborative effort. These programs impact many communities throughout Northern California. Brittany has been working in Indian country for nearly a decade and has provided community-based support to organizations to help improve service systems. She is well known for her community outreach and leadership qualities throughout her community. With that being said, I will now give the floor to Brittany for her presentation. You are muted, Brittany.
Sorry about that. I said, hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and present Domestic Violence 101 for service providers. So in this training, we're going to go over just the general knowledge of domestic violence, also known as IPV, intimate partner violence. And hopefully you'll walk away with an understanding of who's a mandated reporter, how to establish resources, how to be able to relate to victims of domestic violence with empathy and in a non-judgmental manner, and also how to establish resources at your guys' clinics, and who to refer to and how to do that. So that's something I hope you'll learn today. So we can go into the next slide. So the goal is education, health, and wellness for our tribal communities. to enhance the ability of service providers to recognize and effectively serve Native American families who may be experiencing family or domestic violence within their homes or their communities. So the definition of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Domestic violence is sometimes called intimate partner violence. Sorry, I gotta move everyone here because I can't see my whole. There we go. Okay. It's also called intimate partner violence. It includes physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, as well as sexual coercion. Stalking by a current or former intimate partner. An intimate partner is a person in whom the client may have had a close personal relationship with, or a sexual relationship with, and it affects women throughout the United States. Introduction to DV in tribal communities. So recently, research has found that despite falling levels of violence within the United States, the rates of violence among Native Americans, particularly forms of intimate partner violence, also known as IPV, such as domestic violence, stalking, dating violence, and sexual assault, is cause for alarm. And I'm pretty sure most of us are aware of that, the rates are higher within tribal communities than they are in the general population. Studies have shown that violent victimization experienced by Native Americans is 2 to 3 times higher than any other ethnic group. A recent study by the California Department of Health Services found that nearly 6%, or about 620,000 women in total state population, are victims of intimate partner violence. We know that within our tribal communities, our families are afraid to reach out for assistance, especially to those who are outside their family or their communities. One of the barriers to accessing resources we have discovered is the lack of documentation, statistical information to establish the needs of our communities. This means without data, we cannot obtain the necessary resources. Barriers to accessing services. Native American victims of IPV reported feeling disfranchised by non-tribal service providers, whom they stated are not culturally sensitive to or aware of their needs. And an example of this, so with intertribal, I work with 27 different tribes in California. And so I interact when it comes to domestic violence and even sexual assault. We help up to about 600 women a year in providing resources, emergency shelter, and housing services for these women. And a lot of them say that they feel judged, that just even the look of coming in to a tribal health clinic and someone who's non-tribal, making remarks to them. So I think it's about cultural competency and having that be a part of a training for the staff of what is culturally appropriate when interacting with natives within the community, staring at them or making sly remarks. And they might not see it as a harm, but that prevents sometimes victims from even wanting to open up and communicate that they may be having a problem at home or within their family. The lack of trust within the tribal community for state, county, and law enforcement agencies, which lead to IPV not being reported. So an example of that, a lot of times in Native country, and we work with family. There's gossip that may happen, and then also, there may be a time a year ago or a month ago where the victim may have witnessed that the police didn't do anything for their friend or for their cousin, and so they no longer trust law enforcement, and they no longer even trust the social services within the community because of the gossip or the non-follow through when someone they known reported domestic violence and nothing was done about it. Fear of having their children removed if they report IPV, and that happens a lot. So Intertribal has a wellness center, and we help about 70 women a year with parenting classes, and majority of those women have gotten their kids taken away because they were in relationships that had domestic violence. So that is a huge fear with women with their kids being taken away. So these are some comments that we've heard from people that have came to us to receive services. Is I don't go to the county anymore. I tried asking for help twice, and both times they try to take my children away from me. Why call law enforcement? They never help, and if they do, they always choose the non-native side. So domestic violence is not sexist. A lot of times when we talk about domestic violence or sexual assault, immediately we think of a woman. But men also experience domestic violence, and young boys also experience sexual assault. So 1 in 6 women have experienced physical or sexual violence by a current or previous partner since the age of 15, and 1 in 16 men. 1 in 15 women have experienced sexual violence since 15, and 1 in 20 men have experienced sexual violence. 1 woman per week is killed by a current or previous partner, and 1 man per month. Another important factor is teenagers experience domestic violence as well. And when we're talking about a patient coming in to the clinic and it's a teenager, what are some of the signs and symptoms we can look for domestic violence? It may be the same or different than an adult man or female. So teenagers experience domestic violence in the following ways, and this is the power and control wheel. And I'm just going to go over this wheel, and I'm just going to give some examples just in case anyone's provides direct services to the teenager. I'm not sure exactly if there's going to be nurses on here or if there's not. But so sexual coercion. This is a big one amongst teens. And earlier in the introduction, we talked about a program that I've developed. It's called Fly First Love Yourself. And it's around teen dating violence. And I do school assemblies. I also go to different tribes and we host healthy boundaries. And we get a lot of feedback from teenagers about things that they are going through. And they're actually going through a lot, and it's not always discussed. And we don't always know how to look for the signs as service providers, as people within the community, or even parents. We don't always know what to look for. So sexual coercion is deliberate. An example of that could be deliberate pregnancy or forced sexual contact. So outside of what we think generally is like, was someone groped, or was in this teen relationship, was there forced sex? And another example of that could be forced pregnancy. Just like it says, a lot of times teenage girls have came and confided that their boyfriend will not allow them to access birth control. So that's a clear sign that if a teenager is stating that she cannot get birth control because her boyfriend won't know if she's cheating, or if she says something like, I can't get birth control because I have to talk to my boyfriend first. There may be signs of teen dating violence in that relationship. Isolation prevents the teen from spending time with friends or family. If that teen doesn't have marks on their, admits that they are maybe being sexually active, or they do have a boyfriend, but they have no friends, they're having mental health, going to behavioral health because the parents are having a problem getting that child on track. Those are signs and symptoms that teenager may be in an abusive relationship. Intimidation. So the teenager may be being bullied for the partner to get their way. And sometimes that's the partner stopping them from even getting medical treatment. Anger controls a teen with his or her anger. And I don't know if you guys see this sometimes, but that could be a teenager, let's say 17 years old, they're driving and they show up to the clinic and let's say she got birth control, she got all the treatment she needed, and then security happened to see her and her boyfriend fighting in the parking lot afterwards, asserting his anger. So that could be a sign and a symptom that there may be some abusive things happening in that relationship. Threats. If one of the patients that is a teen confides that I'm scared, my boyfriend's been threatening my family. Social status, using popularity to control relationships. And that's another thing. Maybe someone's not coming out and saying, oh, I'm in an abusive relationship, but maybe seeking some kind of support with behavioral health. It could be the teen reaching out or the parent reaching out about this person being bullied at school, and really identifying who is this person bullying and what is the root. It could be an ex-partner that is constantly posting things on social media, and now this person's mental health is affected from that. Blame. And that's another thing that I've seen is in teen relationships, is that the other partner, the perpetrator, is blaming the victim for his or her behavior or his or her anger. And that could be another thing of this teen is now isolating, is having either weight gain or weight loss. And when you actually dig and be like, oh, what's changed in your life? What's going on? And they say, well, I just had someone say, I'm going to commit suicide because I just recently broke up with this person, and he or she is saying their whole life's over, and I just feel horrible. I feel like such a bad person. That would be a sign that teen is in an abusive relationship or needs help as they're exiting out of that abusive relationship. Peer pressure, he or she spreads rumors or secrets. Another example of the peer pressure could be that a teenager, all of a sudden, a mom or a father confides that their teen all of a sudden is coping with drugs or alcohol after being in their first relationship, or is now having behaviors they never had before. That could be a sign or a symptom of that they've been abused in their teen dating relationship. Is there any questions regarding the teen dating violence? Okay, we can move on. So these are some more examples of what is domestic violence. When you encounter someone and you're asking, how do I identify if someone may be dealing with domestic violence? So if their partner is controlling what they're doing, that's a sign that that patient may be dealing with domestic violence. If they confide and say that their partner is always checking their emails, checking their phones and their social networks without their permission, that's when you can identify that there may be an issue here, and digging a little deeper and asking those tough questions. If anyone says that they are being forced to have sex when they don't want to, when they communicate that that their partner is controlling whether or not they can get birth control, or is insisting that they get pregnant, decides if they say and confide that they can't wear what they want or spend money when they want due to their partner, that's a red flag, and to dig deeper and ask those tough questions. If the client says that they are being prevented or discouraged from going to work, going to school, or seeing family and friends, and this even happens, with people that are working in the health clinics, that your coworker could be dealing with domestic violence. and cultivating a work environment where people feel safe and it's talked about, where they can open up. And that could be an issue of why, this person isn't coming to work on time or isn't, interacting with other coworkers. It happens not only with patients, but also in the workplace. If the patient communicates that they're being humiliated in front of others, and sometimes, a lot of times in domestic violence relationships, a lot of times the man won't let the woman go to the doctors on her own. And so you may see him always coming in and making it like a hostile environment or saying really rude things to her. Those are signs to maybe dig deeper, separate her from the perpetrator and ask, are you okay? Is anything happening? Being able to give her resources. If she's being accused of being unfaithful, if someone communicates that, like, he always thinks I'm cheating, I can't come here unless he's here because he thinks I'm going to go sleep with this person or go do this or go do that, that is a sign that that woman is in an abusive relationship. Destroys things. I've seen this a lot of times with the elderly, that it might not be always domestic violence, but when there's usually family members in the home who may be dealing with substance abuse issues, they will destroy things to get what they want, sometimes out of the elders. So those are things to look out for too, not only in DV situations, but also when it comes to the elderly. Threats, if they communicate that they're getting threatened, that they're going to be hurt, that their children are going to be hurt, their loved ones are going to be hurt, or even their pets. If a woman comes in and maybe, let's say she's always had her Chihuahua with her, and the next time you see her, the dog's gone, and you communicate, hey, what happened to your dog? You've always brought her in since you've been coming here. And she says, John didn't want the dog anymore. We got into this big fight, and then he threw my dog and his legs broke. So I had to, put it to sleep. That's a sign that that woman is definitely in a DV situation. Of course, if she's saying that she's being hurt physically, signs of being hit, beaten, punched, kicking, or even being threatened with weapons. If the person is blaming the victim for their violent outbursts, like if you would have just brought me to your doctor's appointment, I wouldn't have pulled up in the parking lot all crazy and we wouldn't have had this fight. Threatens to hurt herself or himself because of being upset with the patient. And that happens a lot too. A lot of times is that's how they manipulate and keep people in the relationship, is saying, oh, I'm going to cut myself. I'm going to kill myself if you leave. If you go and seek help, I'm going to just drive my car off a cliff. Those are things that a lot of times the perpetrators say. Threatens to report you to authorities for imagined crime. So, there could be times when a woman or a man doesn't want to go get resources or seek help because, they will say that they're going to make these false accusations. This actually happened not too long ago, just a few months ago, in the Sonoma area, that this woman came to seek services from our program, but we have a good relationship with the Family Justice Center in Sonoma. So she had a restraining order out on her, and then she was saying, no, it wasn't me, it was him. He threatened me, he did this, he did that. And then when I spoke with the advocate at the Family Justice Center, she was actually the perpetrator. She actually had some charges against her, and she was in her 40s and her husband was actually in his 70s, and she beat him up at the casino. And she told him if he pressed charges that she was going to do A, B, and C. So he's been very scared. And then she's, trying to get services to go around and look like the victim. So it gets very complicated sometimes with the perpetrators of how they play the blame game. Is there any questions about this?
Yes, Brittany, we had a question from Sam in the chat, and he asked, you shared the symptoms for the victim, but how about the aggressor? Do you have any comments on that?
How the aggressor, in what manner? Like what are the signs and symptoms of an aggressor?
Yes.
So this is what we're reading here. I guess this would be the signs and symptoms, right? Is like, how to identify a perpetrator. If a perpetrator is constantly threatening his girlfriend or wife, if he is constantly humiliating her, slapping her, punching her, that's a perpetrator. If he's controlling her getting access to birth control, controlling her on when she can spend money, constantly enforcing her to be barefoot and pregnant, and controlling when she can leave the house, those are all signs and symptoms of a perpetrator. So I would say when you're looking at these examples, turning them around and yeah, these are things we're looking for in women. Are they experiencing this? But who is the one that's actually doing these things? So the person that's doing these things is the perpetrator. So if you know of anyone that is saying, if someone is saying, I'm gonna just slap this girl, or I'm gonna just, if my wife leaves me after, we've had so much trauma in our marriage, we've had so much go down, if she leaves me, I'm just gonna kill myself. That's a perpetrator. That's someone that's manipulating someone into staying in an unhealthy relationship. Does that answer the question?
I would say so. Sam, would that answer your? Yes, he said yes.
Okay, thanks, Sam, for asking a question. I like when people talk back, so I'm like, I don't know if I'm rambling. I don't know if anyone is getting anything. So yeah, I would love for people to ask questions. So thank you, Sam. So what could you do for someone who discloses that they are in an abusive relationship? So it takes a woman, someone who's in an abusive relationship, it takes them about 7 times before they actually leave the relationship. That's not true for everyone, but statistically, that's what they say, is it takes people about 7 times. And you want to be able to be that person that the patient trust, right? Patients are not going to communicate that they are at a very low place in their life if you're not kind of providing a really good customer service. If they're coming in and, like I said, coming in and getting care, and whether you agree with the lifestyle they live, the clothes they're wearing, their mannerisms or behaviors or their voice, whatever it is, we should treat people always with dignity and respect. And especially when we're thinking about that this could be the only safe place victims are going to sometimes get help. So listening without giving advice unless you are asked. So if a woman comes in and or a man, and they come in and they disclose, because I've been to the doctors and I know they ask, are you in a domestic violence situation? No. Okay. And then they're just taking your vitals and it's going on, right? So, but they say no. And then the next thing you know, you're on their little checklist, and they write that they have been feeling symptoms of depression, or their blood pressure is high, or something is just off than it usually is. And then so you ask the question, they said no, but they say something that may indicate that they may be dealing with domestic violence, they just didn't disclose it. We shouldn't be maybe forcing the issue, listening, giving advice, maybe handing a pamphlet, giving them some resources, but not asking too much to where they may feel offended and not open up again. Believe what they are telling you. So if a woman comes in and she has a busted lip and even a missing tooth, sometimes they go to the dental department, or a broken tooth, a chipped tooth, and they say that it's because their boyfriend or their girlfriend socked them, that should not fly past anyone's head. Believe what they are telling you and follow up and follow through on the resources and also the protocol within the health clinic. Do not pressure them to separate from their partner. So if someone discloses that they're dealing with domestic violence, your reaction should never be, you should leave that person. What are you doing? Leave them. You shouldn't be there. No, it should always be approached with understanding and listening to them. So if they're telling you, he controls everything I do, I cannot wear makeup, I can't go anywhere, I have no friends, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry you're going through that. You don't deserve that. I would like to give you some resources. Would you like to talk to someone? I would, like to make a referral. Are you open to those things? Not saying like, oh my God, I can't believe you would stay with him. Not enforcing our personal opinions onto the victim. Do not put their partner down or make judgments. Acknowledge their feelings. So if they're saying, this is the third time they've came in and maybe you've already given them resources and they're back for the fifth time. And once again, she is saying that how horrible her boyfriend or husband is, and she hasn't left yet. She hasn't filed charges. This is the third time she's came in and, she's got a bruise somewhere. And you ask, that you're going to let her know that you're going to make the referral. And she says, yeah, okay. She's like, I just don't know. I just can't leave him. We've been together 15 years. I love him. Acknowledging that those are her truths. That's her truth. And not condoning it, but not enforcing, again, our opinions onto her. It's like not saying, how long are you going to be doing it? It's been 15 years. Why do you keep, this is your third time coming back and you got a busted lip and, is things ever going to change for you? I don't know why you would love that person. That's not our job ever when we're trying to promote trauma-informed care, when we're trying to promote someone to be self-sufficient and be resilient and have their own self-strength, is to put them down. Assess the person's safety with them. So asking those tough questions of, do you feel safe? Are you in a safe place? Has that person ever threatened you with a weapon? Has that person ever threatened to take the kids away? And those are questions to ask. And I think from my understanding, not everyone has a general form that everyone uses. Everyone's protocols and policies and procedures may be different depending on the health clinic that you work for. But I know in the state of California, that healthcare professionals are mandated reporters, and it is required that they report domestic violence to local law enforcement. So I don't know if that's the truth for every state, but I know that's the truth here in California. So if that person in California who's dealing with domestic violence discloses that, yes, he's had a gun and he has threatened me with it. One time last year, I was locked in the house for 2 days and he wouldn't let me go and threatened me with the gun. That has to be reported. So it would be like a lethality assessment. I'm not sure if any of the health clinics on here have that. Does anyone has a lethality assessment when you deal with domestic violence at your clinics?
This is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
We don't have one. We don't have one that is. I have one that's pretty basic, but I would like to see one that is like culturally relevant, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah. So when you say culturally relevant, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I would like with indigenous thought,
Mhm.
somehow to indigenize the lethality assessment. I know they're out there, but I would like to see one that's kind of modified.
Yeah. I don't.
So like even, with our native population, sometimes, the other partner will like put the other one down for their tribe, or sometimes they'll put them down for believing, in their religious beliefs.
Yeah. Very true.
And I guess that could like fall into the religion part of abuse.
Yeah. The religious abuse that falls into like the emotional.
Right.
And then also, like, you bring up a good question, like, what happens when a woman comes in, and what if it's a councilwoman? What if it's the chairman's wife?
Right.
Or what if
Or
it's
even,
the director of the health clinic
right.
that is really known in the community? What do you do then? Um, so what I found to be effective is there being a direct contact person at the clinic that's a mutual party, kind of like an HR, but for TV, where people can feel safe to go and talk to, and they're just that designated. And if someone comes in and discloses DV, that they're the person that's going to do the warm handoff, right? But that person also just being mutual, where people can trust, the person can trust. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And that would be me. I'm the only, I think it's just me and Justin here. That's where it would be.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And then, so if you were to encounter, like, if you had a lethality assessment that was more culturally competent,
Or relevant.
and yeah, and then are relevant. So what do you do after that? If someone discloses that, yeah, this is a person that is living on res, that may be in a place of power, that has threatened me with the weapon, or the danger level is really high. Where do you go from there? I think it would still be law enforcement, right? Wouldn't you say? Or tribal police. But that can be sticky too, depending on the if anyone's related. Is there going to be repercussions for communicating that?
I believe that is a really major concern for our Native communities, because so many people are scared of retaliation. Our Native communities are so small, and bringing up law enforcement, all these places, that doesn't make these people immune to domestic violence or those tendencies. And we see it often, and it's that fear that really silences our victims, and I feel like it's kind of a hard conversation all of our communities need to have. And like you said, kind of having a mutual party, I feel all of our communities could really benefit from something like that, because we're so interconnected that we're just scared. We're scared to come forward because something might not be done at all. The victim could be blamed, or three, like you said, there's like retaliation, or I'm scared. The risk is just too high at that point. So the victims have to suffer in silence.
Exactly. And I see that all the time. And it's really disappointing, people's sometimes if even men too, I don't like to always say women, because men experience too, but people's housing could be on the line. Like, you put my brother in jail, but I'm the director of the housing program. Now you're not getting the house, or you didn't follow some kind of rule, and now people are pushing for this woman to be kicked off, or maybe even disenrolled, or there's just so many unhealthy things that happen sometimes when women go to seek help. And sometimes it's really unfair because this is, you know, and tribal communities are, a lot of them are isolated. And, but this is the woman or the man's home where they grew up, whether it's small town isolation, you know, a res or a rancheria of 150 people. They don't want to leave, you know? And so it's like, even relocating tribal women sometimes is very difficult, and it takes a very brave woman to step outside and do something that she's never done before. And sometimes that causes for relocation, but she's also losing, I think, a sense of identity and self when the retaliation or even the DVs come so bad that she has to leave her family and home, you know? And so, I mean, it's such a big conversation. I don't have all the answers. All I can say is for California and the 27 tribes that I work for, and that's what intertribal is, and that's what our advocates are a mutual party. And like, in some tribes, when they have their own DV programs, you know, it could be someone that constantly is causing chaos in the community, and women and men don't feel safe to go talk to them, you know, to go get services from them. And so with us, with intertribal, all I can say is being that mutual party is we have 8 advocates in different regions. And let's say if someone seen me out in the community and they didn't like the way I conducted myself, but they needed services, they can call and be like, I need services, I need help with, you know, with the restraining order, or I'm going through this. Like, okay, I'll direct you to Brittany. Oh, I don't want to talk to her. And they'd be like, okay, well, we have Terry, we have Angela, we have like all these other people. And so sometimes having, like I said, mutual parties, where people can feel safe, because there's just some people that are working in positions where not everyone feels safe going to them. Yeah. So thank you for your guys's input. I really appreciate that. And I hear you and I understand you, and I'm open to have those conversations and make change in any way we can. I can't remember where I was. Oh, person safety with them. Okay. So ask if they want to speak to someone else for help. So, you know, a lot of times in the contracts I have, I do work with Sonoma County Indian Health, Toyabe and Bishop, and a few other places. But what they do is they have a direct person that would be the DV, not necessarily the DV advocate, but someone, when there's a DV situation, they're the warm handoff. So if someone discloses that they're dealing with domestic violence, they will contact that person. That person will come in the room, you know, ask those tough questions, their safety, what resources they need. And that person who is the direct contact person, she is aware of the resources within the community. So she'll be able to identify the needs. So if that person says, oh no, he doesn't threaten me, but I do want to move, I want to get away from him, that person is aware of the DV shelters in that area, aware of the rental assistant programs that maybe some of the tribes have going on. And that's why training is so important. It's because, you know, I've run into, and I don't know if you guys I don't know of all the health clinics that are on here today, but sometimes, you know, staff that may be non-tribal don't even know what tribes are local, you know, like, I don't know what who do we even work for? Or, you know, some urban health clinics are like a consortium, and there may be a number of tribes under them, and then some may be standing alone, right? If I'm correct, where there's not necessarily a consortium of tribes that are working with them. Am I right or wrong? I think I'm right. So so that person who is who's a direct contact person, I'm just going to use Sonoma County Indian Health, for example. Okay. They have a number of tribes under them. So, you know, asking those questions, are you safe? Yes. What tribe are you from? I'm just going to throw a tribe out there. I'm from Dry Creek. Dry Creek Rancheria. Okay, that person should be able to, does Dry Creek Rancheria have DV services available? Do they have anything that can assist this woman in helping her get out of this situation, right? And then behavioral health. Does she need therapy? Does she want therapy? Things of that nature. Would you guys say that everyone here that's attending this training, everyone's pretty aware of the resources in their area when it comes to domestic violence? Like if you had a situation today that you'd be able to provide something other than the 1-800 helpline as a resource. Yeah, can't see everyone, but okay. And a lot of times TANFs, okay, TANFs, I don't know if you guys are aware of this too. If you have any TANFs in your area, a lot of TANFs have a DV advocate. So getting in contact with them, TANF, who's your DV advocate, being able to make those referrals as well. If it seems too big for, maybe for you to handle, at least being able to give them the DV advocate at TANF's information, where they can have a broader range of resources. And then allow them to make their own decision. Don't, like we've said before, don't enforce your opinion on them or make their decisions for them. If they said they didn't want a referral to TANF, they didn't want a referral to the local DV shelter, don't go calling them on their behalf and making decisions for them. Give them that respect to be self-sufficient on their own. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. What could you do if you discover that your patient or client is in an abusive relationship? Offer to assist the patient or client in seeking out resources, such as ITCC. That's me. So I don't know how many clinics we have on here that are from California, but ITCC is always a good resource. We will always be able to assist any woman who is dealing with domestic violence or sexual assault. And the resources that we have available, we have counseling, financial assistance, emergency shelter, rental assistance, transportation assistance, emergency food, clothing, and we also have a DV shelter specifically only for Native women and their children. And then we have the wellness center. So if anyone's children have been taken due to domestic violence related issues, that we will provide those parenting classes working around their schedule. If they can't make it a certain day, we will help accommodate them so that they can be with, help them in their progress of getting their children back. Educate yourself about the resources within your area. Once again, like someone just being the lead on that. If you have no one that's at the clinic that is designated the job of being the warm handoff when it comes to DV, identifying that, seeing who wants to do that, or just giving someone that role if you have that authority, and then helping them educate themselves on the resources in their area. So what DV shelters do you have in your area? If you don't have any, because I know some places are really isolated, if you don't have any, what DV shelters maybe miles away are in areas maybe 2 hours, 3 hours away, and then calling, because not every DV shelter takes women out of the county, out of their county or their service area, and then some do. So you don't want to give a resource if you're in a really isolated area. I work with Chimueve, and they're pretty isolated. I don't know if anyone knows of them, but they're pretty isolated. And the DV shelter closest to them is about 3 hours away, and they don't take people outside the county. So you don't want to give a woman a number and it just be a dead end resource. She gave me this number. They said they have beds available. I call and they won't take me. I live in Sacramento County, and they only take people in Los Angeles area or whatever. So once again, identifying the DV shelters in your area, then also identifying the local tribes in your area. So when someone's self-disclosed what tribe they're from, being able to know what resources the tribe may have when it comes to DV services. And then also, you know, a lot of times when women are dealing with DV, this isn't all the time, but majority of the time, there's financial hardship, right? So what harm would it be with that person who's going to be the warm handoff, also having like the food bank resources, you know, or having, sometimes they have diaper giveaways. They're going to be women that maybe just left an abusive relationship and may need help with diapers or may need help with different resources. So just looking in your local area and having that so that you can actually hand it to them and then being educated about it. So when they ask those questions of knowing, yeah, this is within this county, or they give out diapers, you know, from 12 to 3, or the tribe has, you know, you say you're from this tribe and, you know, your tribe does have a rental assistance program, you know, just in case, you know, because a lot of times, you know, there's evictions, there's a lot of things that are going on when people are dealing with DV. They sometimes don't always have it, let's say, all together. And, you know, a lot of times when people are dealing with trauma, the last thing they're thinking about is, I'm going to Google what resources are in my area. That's not like the first thing that's coming to mind. They're in survival mode. So being prepared and educated on the resources would really be a great advocacy tool for them to be self-sufficient and empowered to leave, you know, that relationship. Explore with your patient or client if they have someone they can talk with or that they trust. And so asking those questions, like if they have family nearby, are they close to their family? If they want to a referral to behavioral health, those are always good things to say and ask, because a lot of times, you know, when people are dealing with isolation, what creeps in when you're alone? You know, a lot of thoughts creep in, depression creeps in, low self-esteem creeps in. We all need family and community to feel supported and loved and inspired. So, you know, don't let her leave without feeling like she has somebody, you know, and if she communicates she doesn't, you know, being that support system for her. Help patients or clients understand that no one deserves to be abused. Of course, coming at that in a way with love and empathy, not judgmental. So I'm sorry you're going through that. You don't deserve that. I understand. I hear you. You know, not coming at her too hard with our opinions. Understanding your reporting requirements. Are you a mandated reporter? So child, disabled, and elderly were, you know, when you're working in social services, when you're doing any kind of care, obviously you have to report any kind of abuse when it comes to children, disabled, or elderly. So these are some examples of mandated reporters. So if you fall under any of these categories, you are a mandated reporter. And I'm no law scholar. I don't know the law in every state, but I can speak for California that if you are, you know, working in the health clinic and you're providing a direct service like a medical assistant, nurse, doctor, dental assistants, you are required to report domestic violence. I don't know if it's like that in every state. So beyond listening and understanding, you can offer very real help in the following ways. Help her make a safety plan, whether she's staying or leaving. So, sorry, look at what time. Oh, we're running kind of late. I was going to see if anyone wanted to give examples. Okay, so helping her make a safety plan, whether she's staying or leaving. Example of that could be if she's planning to leave, depending on your lethality assessment, are you going to get law enforcement involved? Are you going to allow her to to go home. I mean, you can't hold anyone hostage, but you can give her advice if she says, yeah, he's gonna beat me when I get home, don't go home. Let us help you. But if she's leaving and she's like, I don't, I'm still gonna go home, and the safety plan could be, well, if you ever need help, call me, call this number, helping her have avenues of safety in whether she's leaving or staying. Encouraging her to hang out with you and other supportive friends and family members to remind her she has support. So, encouraging her in a health clinic way could be, I know health clinics you guys always have events going on. There's always stuff going on. If you have that, I know the clinics, they have the regulars, okay, and they're always like at the events, or they're just there a lot or whatever. It's like you can develop friendships and family out of that, right? Like if a woman is coming in and she, is displaying signs and symptoms of being in an unhealthy relationship, go that extra mile. Like if you have an event going on, inviting her to that event, developing that trusted bond with her where she doesn't feel like when she does disclose that she's, wants to leave this relationship or she's in an unhealthy relationship, she's not going to talk to a stranger. She's going to feel trusted because there's friendly faces at the clinic. She goes there. She's been invited places. So those are just some examples. Provide her with some supplies or other resources to the extent that you can. So again, coming up with a pamphlet of resources, being educated on it, being able to hand that off to her, and any other supplies that she may need. I don't know how that looks in every clinic, but I mean, if if you guys have something going on where there's a gift card for groceries or something, like looking at what is the need and how can we give her whatever the resources is that she needs. Encourage her to get resources. And then down here at the bottom is just a website where you can go explore on your own, and it helps you develop some tools. It's just a good read of how to help encourage someone to leave an unhealthy relationship and help them to make that decision on their own. And then again, I'm sure you guys know this, but this is just the national hotline number for domestic violence. So maybe having these up in your bathrooms, in your offices, in the where patients go. Okay, so these are just some what healthcare professionals can do. Routinely screen for all adults for domestic violence. Providers should also screen children for domestic violence, teenagers. Those who have development delays may be experiencing the trauma of witnessing domestic violence. Some kids, not some kids, when kids are in households where there's domestic violence, they do experience trauma. And so that's another good point to make is if she's willing to take resources for behavioral health, also offering that for her kids. Indicate the patient that you are willing to discuss domestic violence. What is being done to them is illegal. You do not blame them for being abused, and that you can help. Document injuries through photographs and written descriptions that are caused by abuse, and record the patient's verbal or written testimony about what the injuries, how the injuries occurred. Your documented notes should remain objective with neutral language and clear observations. Maintain a secure chart storage to ensure that the information in the patient's chart is kept confidential. Give patients the toll-free phone number and locations of domestic violence organizations in the area, as well as other resources that could help domestic violence victims. Assess patients' safety and help them develop an escape plan in case the violence escalates. So you could be the safe zone. The clinic could be the safe zone for that victim, right? If the level is that high where she cannot leave and she's very scared, with the person that's going to be the warm handoff, making the plan of, okay, you know what, this is an example. We're going to schedule you for an appointment. And then when you come in here, you know, we will be able to have law enforcement. We will be able to, we will safeguard her so that she doesn't go home and it escalates. So sometimes that's happened where the woman will go home. She'll be like, okay, I want to leave, but I have to go home. I can't let him know what's going on. And then they will schedule an appointment for her to come in. So what she'll tell her perpetrator is, I have a doctor's appointment, I have a dentist appointment. And then when she goes there, that's when law enforcement meets her, and they're able to provide resources, get her in a safe place, and then they go and make their arrest. And sometimes that usually happens in severe cases where she's been held hostage, or there's been, you know, a severe beating. Where was that? Oh, encourage colleagues to enact similar procedures if a patient gives their permission. Collaborate with them to develop and coordinate care strategies. And then down here at the bottom, screening tools are available at the cdc.gov. So if you guys go to that website, if your clinic does not have a screening tool, if you go to that website, there's printable ones that you can print out. And this is just an example of some of the forms that are on the CDC if you guys don't have those. And this is just something, you know, that you could put into place if you don't have it. If someone comes in and discloses that they're dealing with, have had domestic violence and they have bruises or cuts, have maybe been strangulated, these are things that you can document and forms you can use. Creating resources and providing wraparound services. So these are just some examples to improve some of the resources that you can have in the clinic is having brochures of your local DV emergency services programs in the clinic, having brochures of the tribal programs for participating tribes or even local tribes, identifying if the TANF program has a DV caseworker, and creating those relationships with them, even maybe establishing MOUs with the local TANF in regards to their DV caseworker and how you guys would make referrals, creating a warm handoff between the healthcare providers. So identifying who would be a good person to address the DV, if there was ever a case of DV, who would be a good person to go in there and be able to provide the resources, do the lethality assessment, and the mandating reporting if that's required. And then once again, Intertribal Council of California. So if anyone's in California, this is just a brief description of our program and what we do. And once again, that we provide emergency shelter, transportation, emergency food and clothing. We help with the temporary restraining order. We do crisis intervention, peer counseling, and a number of other things. And that is it. Oh no, we have more. So these are all links if you guys want to go visit any of them. Domestic violence links, and these are national links that could help you if you had any more questions regarding stuff that we talked about. And the one here on the third bulletin, American Bar Association. This is a good resource when I say that, like, I don't know in every state what the reporting requirements are for people for anyone that's working with domestic violence when it comes to the direct service, but they do training and technical assistance, and they do it nationally. So if you have that question and you want that training for your employees, they're a great resource to call, and they will do a training on what's the mandated reporting requirements for your state. And then you have the National Indigenous Women Resource Center. That is the 1-800 number here. That is something you could put up if you would want something more culturally specific as far as someone getting services for domestic violence. And they are just a resource hut. So if they do call, they will be able to give the woman or the man resources when it comes to domestic violence. And they also provide training and technical assistance. So if you guys wanted to go look at their website or call them regarding any training that they may have regarding domestic violence, if you wanted further information. And then that is it. Is there any questions before we go? No? Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see, I only seen a few faces on here, but I hope to see you guys all again, and just have a blessed day.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Brittany. For anyone who were interested in the tools or the resources that Brittany presented on a slide, I've placed her email in the chat just in case you needed to get in contact with her to further discuss plans for your site. But thank you everyone for coming. Please feel free to fill out our event survey, which has been placed in the chat, and the QR code is here. Again, we thank Brittany for coming, and if you want further information on domestic violence, please feel free to contact Brittany or myself, Aaliyah Smith, and our contact information has been placed in the chat. So thank you everyone for coming, and we hope you have a good day.